Okay, what if I told you that a giant container ship is basically a machine, and that a simple cornfield in Iowa can actually be a car factory? We're about to dive into a story that pulls back the curtain on international trade and shows it for what it really is, one of the most powerful and honestly most misunderstood technologies we've ever invented. So, picture this. It all starts when a stranger rolls into town. He doesn't say much, but he's promising something that sounds, well, frankly, impossible. Something that's about to change everything. All right, part one, the stranger's factory. So this stranger announces he's going to build a factory. But here's the thing. This is not your average, everyday factory. It holds a deep secret. And he claims it's going to completely revolutionize the way things are made. He tells the town that he's made a remarkable discovery, a way to make everything from TVs to cars not just cheaper, but actually better than anyone else. Now, you can imagine people are skeptical, right? But they're also very, very curious. And he's not messing around. He buys up this huge piece of land right on the coast, builds a massive facility, and get this, he hires 5,000 local people. But there's a really strange catch. Every single employee has to sign a strict non-disclosure agreement. They can never reveal what goes on inside. And for a long, long time, nobody says a word. And you know what? It works. It's wild. Trucks go in carrying basic stuff like grain and coal, and out the other side come brand new cars, phones, and refrigerators. The products are incredible, way higher quality, and at prices nobody has ever seen before. The public is absolutely ecstatic. This stranger is suddenly a hero, like a modern-day Thomas Edison. His employees are happy, his investors are thrilled. It seems like everyone is winning. Well, almost everyone. His competitors? They are furious. They just can't keep up. So they go running to the government, demanding something be done. His technology, they complain, is totally ruining us. So that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? What in the world was this secret technology? How could it possibly turn simple grain and coal into complex things like cars and phones? Part 2, the secret is out. Well, a mystery this big can't stay hidden forever. A curious journalist manages to get a job inside the factory, armed with a hidden camera. And what he uncovers is just mind-blowing. Inside this giant, secret-filled factory, there are no machines, no assembly lines, no robotic arms, absolutely nothing. Just a whole lot of empty space. It turns out the whole factory was just an elaborate front for a massive shipping dock. The stranger's revolutionary discovery wasn't a new machine at all. It was just trade. The whole process was incredibly simple. The grain and coal were just being loaded onto container ships and sent overseas. In return, other ships would arrive, filled to the brim with those high-quality, low-cost goods. He wasn't manufacturing anything on site. He was just using the powerful machine of international trade to transform cheap raw materials into incredibly valuable products. Part 3, the backlash. So once this secret gets out, public opinion turns on a dime. The town hero becomes a villain, literally overnight. The public is outraged. Politicians get on TV and rail against unfair foreign competition. Consumer groups start organizing boycotts. The once celebrated entrepreneur is now a total outcast. The pressure just becomes too much, and the so-called factory gets shut down for good. And what happens next? Well, this chart really says it all. Those amazing, affordable, high-quality goods, they completely disappear. Prices for everything go way up, and the quality goes way down. The whole country suffers. And hey, remember those 5,000 people we talked about earlier? Every single one of them loses their well-paying job. The town that was booming just a little while ago, it falls into a steep decline. Part 4, growing cars in Iowa. Now, this story isn't just some clever fable. It's a perfect illustration of a real economic concept that the economist Stephen Landsberg calls the Iowa car crop. So this lays out two different ways you can produce a car in America. First, you have the Detroit method. You use steel and labor to build a car in a factory. Simple enough. But then you have the Iowa method. You grow a field of wheat, you export that wheat, and it comes back from Japan in the form of a car. And this brings us to a really critical point. As Landsberg himself puts it, a tax or a ban on imported cars is really just a tax or ban on Iowa-grown cars. When you look at it this way, the Iowa farmer and the Detroit auto worker are in direct competition with each other. They're just using different technologies to get to the same end result, a car for an American consumer. So if you protect the Detroit car makers from their competition, you're not protecting all of America. You are actively choosing to damage the Iowa farmers, because the Iowa farmers are the competition. Part 5, trade is a technology. And this is really the whole point, the main takeaway. We need to completely reframe how we think about trade. It isn't a battle between countries. It's something much more fundamental. Let's just go back to basics for a second. What even is technology? At its core, it's simply a method for turning some inputs into outputs that are more valuable. That's it. By that definition, the Stranger's factory was absolutely a technology. It turned grain into TVs. An Iowa farm is a technology for turning wheat into cars. International trade is just a very, very efficient machine for transforming what we have into what we want. Trying to ban it or restrict it is kind of like taking a sledgehammer to your most productive machine. So when politicians start talking about protecting one industry, just remember they're really just choosing to harm another. And as the Stranger's story shows so clearly, the end result is that pretty much everyone is worse off. Which leaves us with one final and pretty important question. If trade is one of the most powerful technologies we have for creating wealth and prosperity, why are we so often so afraid of it? Why do we fight so hard to shut it down? It's definitely a question worth thinking about.